Good morning, PT on ICE people. My name is Dr. Alexis Morgan, and I'm excited to be here with you all this morning. Happy Labor Day. It is a day that in the birth world, I commonly, of course, am thinking about labor and our laboring mamas. And so because of that, I wanted to hop on this morning and talk about labor with you all, and not just what to expect in labor and how do we prepare for labor, because of course that is where you can take our courses and learn a whole lot more detail. I want to talk a little bit about something that we all can do as providers in this area. And that is that we need to pass on positives. So, what do I mean by that? Well, in birth, and let's be honest, in healthcare in general, we really like to hang on to these ideas of these scary stories, right? We've all been frustrated by the practitioner. Maybe it was the surgeon, or maybe it was the other PT, or maybe it was a chiropractor, whomever, but we've all been frustrated by a practitioner who has said something along the lines of, this is the worst X I've ever seen, the worst back or the worst knee that I've ever seen, right? We get frustrated by these negatives. That's what we see a lot in the orthopedic world. In the birth world, what we see is these stories of trauma and these stories of these one-offs that get replayed over and over and over. And almost always those one-offs are negative. I mean, I can think in my head too of several things that have happened to various clients of mine that have been negative or that have been traumatic. It is normal to hang on to that as practitioners. I'm not asking you to let go of those because you're going to do it. It is human nature. But we need to hear positives. We need to hear these positive stories. That is okay that you're hanging on to some of the negatives, but you need to pass along the positives. And so let's talk about how you can do that and what you need to do and what you need to consider. So consider that newly pregnant individual who this is their first pregnancy, and they really know nothing about this entire journey whatsoever. They don't understand anything about pregnancy. They definitely don't understand postpartum and what their life is about to turn into. And by no means do they understand the whole journey of labor and delivery. Really, their only concept is from movies. What do you think is going through their mind about birth? Probably some screaming, maybe some being strapped down, and definitely pain, right? That is a very common concept of birth, but that is not the only concept of birth. There are so many beautiful stories within birth. There are so many wonderful ways in which people go through labor and delivery. And I'm not just talking about these crunchy mamas, so to speak, who just give birth at home with in a bathtub with candles all around them. Like, yes, that is beautiful too, but that is not for everybody. There are even beautiful stories where people maybe planned for that birth and then wound up at the hospital, and they still had a beautiful experience, a positive experience, despite the changes in their plans. We need to hang on to these stories. We need to share these stories. It's these stories that give moms and dads hope. It's these stories that give people the opportunity to go, ooh, maybe this will be a beautiful experience. This is about to be the most transformative experience for an individual, one of the most transformative experiences of their lives. Yes, we understand as pelvic clinicians that their pelvic floor and or their core are going to go through some difficult times. We understand what we're going to have to do to help them rehab and return. And they can still have this wonderful experience that they look back fondly on. And so I want you to consider that individual down the road, a little bit down the road, newly pregnant. Now she's starting to read some books, talking to some healthcare providers and doulas, and they're saying, okay, we're going to figure out kind of what you want out of your birth. And let's say that that individual decides they don't want any medication on board. That is within their birth plan. That is within their birthright to desire no medications. We know that sometimes that plan doesn't go that way. We know that sometimes they have to get medically induced because of some challenge within their system or baby. Right? We know that sometimes with those inductions, they might decide that they're going to get that epidural because those contractions are so different under Pitocin than they are under oxytocin and under their own body, right? We know the route that it might go, but let's share some positive stories with them. Let's share that. And let's think about the commentary that she could be hearing. Yes, that is so beautiful. Let's talk about some of these other options that might occur just in case, because you never know with birth what's going to happen. It does prepare you for parenthood, right? You don't know, you can't control all variables. So let's talk about some of those, but that is a beautiful plan. Love that. I've had several clients go through that same or similar birth story. Yeah, let's do that. Let's empower this individual rather than, I don't know about that. Ooh, are you sure that's going to be really painful? Right? She already has family members. She already has judgmental friends and community people who are saying these things to try to warn her. She doesn't need all of that. She needs your support and she needs your education and she needs your preparation. And so hone in, number one, what you're going to do is hone in on the positives. What are the positive stories that you've heard in your own life with your friends, with your family, or with your clients? Hone in on those. Maybe you even write them down so that you have them to recall. If you're having a difficult time remembering some of these stories because your brain is just latching on to those negatives, write them down. And then lastly, share them with the pregnant people. I just met, as I am 20 weeks pregnant, I just met with our doula and she recommended a couple of resources for me, and I'm going to pass them along to you. If you're in this world, you're probably familiar with both of these, but if you're not, or if you're new, then I want you to know about a couple of stories or a couple of resources for stories. So number one, definitely in the crunchy realm, but the book Ina May, written by Ina May Gaskin, in regards to birth. That is a wonderful story. The first half is all stories of positive births. Now, I said it's crunchy. It is in care with midwives, and it is not in the hospital system. And so that may not be very helpful for you to share some of these stories, or that may not feel as relevant to many of your clients who are likely going to be giving birth in a birth center or at a hospital. And so your other resource is another podcast called The Birth Hour. And they simply share birth stories on there. And the titles are ones that you can search by. So it can be positive birth experience with C-section, or planned vaginal when C-section, or positive experience vaginal delivery at the hospital. There are so many different types of stories, and I think I've already started listening to those. It's been a while since I've listened to them. But a few years ago, I inhaled that podcast, just trying to understand and learn even more. And it is such a great resource to not only just hear positives like, I wanted this birth, I got this birth, but it's also, I think, maybe even more powerfully, a wonderful resource to share exactly what we're trying to do as clinicians, which is share these alternative paths that may occur. And in that, there are people who are sharing their stories. As I mentioned, maybe they planned that home birth in the bath with the candles all around them, wound up giving birth in the hospital. They're sharing that story and they're sharing how empowered they were and how beautiful that birth still was, even though that was not plan A. That might have been plan D for some of these people. But it just really helps to portray this idea that, yeah, we don't know everything that's going to happen, and that is okay. And you can have a good experience even if it goes a little bit different than you anticipated. So that is for the topic for today on labor and delivery. And that is just, let's share positive birth stories. We need to inundate the internet and inundate our communities with these beautiful stories. When I hear my clients come back from birth and they have beautiful stories, I say, share your story with everyone. And one of the most common responses that I get back is, but not everybody has that. And I feel like I'm so lucky to have it. I don't want to make anyone feel bad because they didn't have that. And I'm always responding with, but what about the people who are scared to give birth, who are scared to get pregnant because all they hear are horror stories? Or what about the people who are currently pregnant? They need to hear these stories of hope. It does not take away whatsoever from an individual who had a traumatic experience. Your story matters too. These positive stories matter, and these negative stories matter, or these traumatic stories matter. So share the stories, share the positives. If you don't really have many stories, read that book or listen to the podcast. And I would encourage you, it's Labor Day. It gives you an excuse. Go ask somebody about their birth story and ask them, what were some of the positive things that occurred in your birth? Everybody has, or I should say, most people will have positive things that they can reflect back on, even if the entire aspect was not fully positive. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Have a great holiday, and we will catch you on the road. We've got some live courses upcoming. You can head on over to ptonice.com to see those. We've got Hendersonville, Tennessee this weekend that is sold out. And then next weekend in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we still have a few seats left. If you are up in that area and want to join us, our online level 1 course starts next Monday, and it is about to sell out. Listen to me, it is about to sell out. These courses always sell out, so grab your spot now. Thanks for being here this morning, and we'll catch you next time.